The problem is that phenomenologically, in other words, when we observe a patient with autism, a high-functioning autism, which used to be called Asperger, when we observe a high-functioning autist and when we observe a narcissist, especially in social interactions, they appear to be identical. Consequently, many therapists confuse the two or conflate the two, misdiagnose narcissism as Asperger, as autism, and autism as narcissism. And so it goes both ways. Let's start with the basic fact that autists have empathy of all kinds, including emotional, as actually pronouncedly emotional. They're very emotional inside. They have a very powerful empathy. Narcissists don't. They have cold empathy. The body language of autists and narcissists appears to be identical, but the psychodynamic etiology, the reason behind the body language, is totally different. Autists appear to be shy or arrogant because they fear pain and rejection. In this sense, they are much closer to avoidant personality disorder. Narcissists appear to be arrogant because they are arrogant, not because they fear pain and rejection, because they think they're much better than you, superior to you, and so on. At least in my case, it's true. So, I can't help it. Don't you understand? Can't help it.
Ein Compulsion.
Compulsion, yeah. Viennese compulsion. The inner world of the autist is radically different to the inner world of the therapist. For example, autists are in no need of narcissistic supply. Autists are very sociable. They want to socialize. They want company. They want to have sex even. They want to. So they aspire to be normal, but they simply can't. They can't for a variety of reasons. Today we know that certain structures in the brain are affected and so on. So it's really a more biological problem than mental health problem. But they can't. To start with, exactly like the narcissist, they misinterpret social cues. They disastrously misread body language, other people's body language. And that's true for the narcissist as well. The difference is that when they do that, they don't realize it, or if they do realize it, they react with withdrawal. They withdraw. When a narcissist does that, the narcissist will reframe the situation in terms of grandiosity. So, for example, if I misread your social cues and rejected by you, I would say, wow, this guy is seriously retarded. I mean, what an asshole. I would devalue you. I would devalue you to maintain my superior grandiosity. So we say that autists have autoplastic defenses. In other words, autists would guilt trip themselves, would take the blame on themselves. There's something wrong with me. Something wrong with me, that's why I'm being rejected. And narcissist has alloplastic defenses. Narcissists would say, well, something wrong with them, that's why they're rejecting me. But both of them, of course, are socially utterly inept. Narcissists are focused around obtaining supply in order to support and buttress their grandiosity and to maintain a stable sense of self-worth. Autists have a stable sense of self-worth. They don't need external input. And indeed, the vast majority of autists are recluses and schizoid. They stay home. They're kind of nerds. Many autists are in professions, solitary professions, like computer coding and so on, because they don't need supply. Narcissists are heavily dependent on supply for regulation. If they don't get supply for a prolonged period of time, they disintegrate. They go through a process called decompensation, which leads later to even psychosis, if the supply is missing for a very long time. I think these are the basic differences, but they're massive differences.
They're huge.
I mean, there's emotion. Autist has emotional world, narcissist doesn't. Autist has empathy, narcissist doesn't. Autist doesn't need narcissistic supply, narcissist does. Autist is not arrogant and shy, on the very arrogant. On the very contrary, he's shy and believes there's something wrong with him. Narcissist is arrogant and believes something's wrong with everyone, etc., etc., etc. However, observing from the outside, and if you are only limited to observation, they appear identical.
It's an unfortunate accident for people with autism.
So what do the comments say? As an autistic, I like to add my 2 cents to the conversation. There is the theory of the double empathy. Some autistic have hyper-empathy, which I agree very much. It is more common that autistics are the victims of abuse rather than abusers. We are naive, which explains why we are abused so easily. We want to understand the world. We are the type of people to read about psychology, astrology, body language, or whatever, because we so desperately want to understand and be understood. We don't want to hurt anybody. We feel terribly when we are told we did. We feel very strongly about justice and injustices. And another comment. High functioning ASD here, some of us do have empathy sometimes too much. Think of your emotions and social interactions as being automatic. An autistic person has a manual system. We are interacting with another person. We search through a list of possible responses based on what has worked before or what we have witnessed other people do, either in real life or on TV and in movies. We rehearse these constantly, and a great deal of planning goes into social contact. We memorize jokes, stories, and news articles so we have something to talk about. Practice responses and facial expressions, study body language and rhythm of speech. We run through the conversation we are likely to have before we meet you. We break it down afterwards to see what bits worked and what didn't and store that away for next time. Yeah. So, if you take us by surprise or go off script, or it is a situation we have not come across before, we empathize but are not sure of the response, especially if we don't know you that well. An example. A colleague at work announced that she was being made redundant and started crying. This came out of the blue. Do I pat their shoulder, hug her, say something sympathetic, say an experience that I had that was similar, to show I understand how they are feeling, cry with them, call someone, fetch a glass of water? Meanwhile, I'm just standing there awkwardly, watching her cry while I take far too long to decide. Automatic for you, a minefield for us, yeah. I genuinely have no clue which of these was the best response in that situation. Also, in my experience, no autistic person wants to be the center of attention, unlike a narcissist. We have been bullied too much to enjoy a circle of faces fixed on us. All our energy goes into just trying to present as normal, and we prefer to do that out of the spotlight. As you can imagine, all this is exhausting, and this is why we avoid socializing.
But what about, are there people who so desperately want to be different and interesting and awesome that if they think autism and Asperger's is the next genius or X-Man or dolphin spirit or angel, whatever, that they want that label because it looks like it'll make them look really good?
Yeah, I am aware of those people as well.
So you think that there are narcissists who are attracted to a diagnosis?
Yeah.
And there are people with the diagnosis who use it narcissistically. And then there are some people who just happen to have an autism diagnosis because of their own autism fruit salad. And in their fruit salad, they don't have narcissistic personality disorder.
I also believe there are people who've been misdiagnosed on the spectrum by people who diagnose autism and or Asperger's, but probably shouldn't because they don't know enough about it. And a lot of the people they diagnose are narcissists.
So could those people have a percentage of Asperger's
Possibly,
and autism?
possibly.
This is a good one.
It's difficult to say.
Miss, pick me.
Yes, Donna, what can I do for you?
So what I was thinking, I've so overexcited myself, I can't remember what I was going to say.
Oh dear.
But it was something about percentages. So here's the deal, right?
Okay.
Narcissist goes to therapist's office, really wants to get a diagnosis of Asperger's or autism. Narcissist has, say, 15% of their stuff is because they're mildly Asperger. So they have some aspects of Asperger's, but when they go in, that's what they put forward. So they come out with a diagnosis of Asperger's.
So, in other words, they go in to get diagnosed and they pretend to be Asperger.
No, they play on their Aspergerness.
Okay, yep, gotcha.
And then when they come back out, the therapist might think that they were quite Asperger or 60% Asperger, but in reality, they then go back to their 85% narcissism.
Yeah.
And anyone else who meets them just thinks, what happened? You know, because you're bolshing around, you're doing cyber stalking crap, you're doing cyberbullying rubbish on people, you're wearing your label like a trophy, you know, like a badge, and you're using it to go around abusing people, and you're getting a girlfriend saying she's got to do everything you want because you've got Asperger's and otherwise you're going to have a major tanty, you know. What do you think of that?
I think it's very wrong. I think it, it gives people who are genuinely diagnosed and out to do good a really bad name.
How about narcissism and tantrums? Do you throw them? Sorry, do you throw tantrums?
I throw tantrums not because I want to get my own way. And probably in the past it seemed like that. And maybe there may have been times in the past where I have but not been aware of it. But
how about...
I tend to do it now just because I'm having a meltdown or whatever.
Okay, so is that narcissistic?
Don't think so.
You're just overloaded and...
Yeah.
Overstimulated. A bit like me before I got excited and I couldn't remember anything.
Yeah.
Point. Will narcissistic personality disorder make you look Asperger?
I was about to get to that.
Really?
I don't see anything about a narcissistic personality that's necessarily Asperger.
Okay, stop. What about lack of empathy?
That's basically have a lack of empathy. That's just not really caring or taking into consideration.
Do you think that people with Asperger's lack empathy?
No.
But it's a stereotype.
It's a big mistake.
Oh, they've got you wrong? Have you been falsely accused of a lack of empathy?
In the past I have, and I think back on it now, I've been hideously insulted.
Oh, okay.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of Aspies have difficulty showing empathy in certain situations.
Because they're not reading the signs.
Yeah, well, they don't necessarily know how to respond emotionally to the situation.
Okay, because they haven't read the signs and learned it in the past.
Yeah.
And so if people can read facial expression, body language, intonation,
then
they know how to respond when they feel empathy.
And
they know what they're seeing that causes the empathy. But if they can't perceive that, if that's just movements and sounds and it doesn't mean anything, how do they know what they're seeing in order to feel the empathy about it? Or how do they learn what people do with those feelings? So
well, it's interesting because another scenario you might find is that someone on the spectrum might feel a great deal of empathy for someone. For example, if someone's upset because their mum just died, someone with Asperger's might feel really sad for them, but not really know how to respond.
Yeah,
in
and
the best
might
way.
go straight into talking to people about something to do with where they can get the cheapest coffin and, there's a sale on at the local funeral parlour.
And people will misread that.
They'll think that's lack of empathy where the person is actually just doesn't know which piece of information to hone in on.
Yeah.
And so randomly just starts making, trying to be helpful in ways that gets perceived as really unempathic. So that's quite different to a narcissist who is just so full of themselves that everybody else is seen as a waste of time. Yeah?
Absolutely.
And that will come across the lack of empathy. In other words, a lack of empathy can be caused by many different things. Lack of empathy has its own fruit salad. And one of those things that can look like a lack of empathy is just not getting it.
Yeah.
Another thing that can look like a lack of empathy is not knowing which piece of information to use to respond. Another thing that can look like lack of empathy is people being very self-protective and afraid to show who they are. So exposure anxiety will make you look the other way, say something to divert. That sort of stuff can make you look like you don't care, but you're actually caught up in your own self-protection stuff. Or a lack of empathy can be, you just got your head up your butt. Okay, what should people...
That must smell bad.
I'm sure. What should people who have narcissists... Do you have empathy for people with narcissistic personality disorder? I don't.
Well, it's hard to, because I don't know what's in their head. I don't find their attitudes
Yes,
very...
you do. You do. You've been bullied. You've been chronically bullied. And narcissists, that's what they are. I've had cyber stalkers, cyber bully crap. That's narcissists. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Do you have empathy for those people and their little inferiority dramas? That they have to do that to someone else to turn themselves into a guy? I've got no empathy for that.
I don't personally find it logical, so...
I don't find it logical and I don't find it nice.
No, it's not.
And I don't like when people with that crap then start doing it either to other people diagnosed with autism or they take that crap and use their new label as a means of going and attacking non-autistic people.
I completely agree.
And pushing everybody around about you have to treat me like this because I've got this label. So again, there's a difference between narcissism and self-advocacy.
Yeah.
So we will say to people, look, here's the deal, here's how it's working for me, here's the fallout. If we're going to change this, can we do it this way? Now, that's not bossing people around, that's advocacy.
Yeah.
But you can see that there are people who might have narcissistic stuff who just like to get away with whatever they want.
True.
Bugger.
Yeah.
I need a humongous glass of wine to get through this topic. The topic today is high-functioning autism. Are these people psychopaths? Are they narcissists? What the heck happened to Asperger's syndrome? And how do we view autism today after the massive revision in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, Edition 5, 2013? Let's start with observations. Many of you who had come across people with autism spectrum disorders describe them as somewhat antisocial, somewhat psychopathic, a lot grandiose and entitled and narcissistic. Many people say he's not a narcissist, he has Asperger's syndrome, or he's not a psychopath, he's a high-functioning autist. Or the other way around. He's not autistic, he's actually a psychopath. There's a huge confusion in the field. And by the way, this confusion extends not only to you, the layman, but to my colleagues, professors of psychology, to therapists, to psychologists, everywhere.
As a high-functioning autistic and very empathic person, I feel so concerned by this subject. It affects me all the time in my everyday life to the point that it sometimes gets infuriating. It is so easy to confuse lack of emotion with lack of understanding of emotion and lack of empathy with lack of showing empathy. I always have to justify myself, adapt my behavior to every person that I meet, apart from other people on the spectrum who understand me naturally. Because my emotions seem strange and unnatural and my empathy seems forced or calculated. And as an empath, I do enjoy meeting new people, so it happens a lot. I can tell you that I want to help you, I want to share your emotions, so please let me do it and don't stop at the language barrier we have between us. Why do so many people have this misconception that autistic people are egotistical? The reason why we seem emotionless is that nobody ever makes the effort of helping us understand and communicate the genuine emotions we have. The reason why we calculate everything and stay to ourselves most of the time is because we can only rely on ourselves to survive. Because we are always seen as different and weird by default. That is not being a narcissist, it is just surviving as an individual without any help and without the means of communicating efficiently in a ruthless social setting. I have met and talked to a lot of autistic people, and it would really help us all if we did not always get instantly judged as strange, rude, cold, or even assumed to be bad people or even psychopaths just because we don't communicate like everyone does. And to anyone who actually makes the effort of seeing the person behind the stiff faces and the strange and clumsy language, thank you, you mean the world to us. There are also people with autism who have far more empathy than neurotypicals. See, so many are saying that. Well, it seems like they don't have empathy. It could also be because they have too much and are hypersensitive to it and don't know how to act because it can be so overwhelming. Yes. The difference tends to be not that we don't have empathy, just that it's hard for us to name and define how we are feeling. I know from my own personal experience and others around me, it's due to not understanding others' intentions or social isolation. People with autism tend to fall victim to narcissistic abuse more easily. One is a personality disorder, one is neurodivergent. Due to this, it's very difficult to compare the two. In my experience, people with high-functioning autism have massive amounts of empathy. Most neurotypical people I come across are lacking in empathy. I worked in healthcare most of my working life, and I constantly came across narcissists, especially in senior management. I have Asperger's, and I can tell you I don't believe I could ever harm another person outside of legitimate legal self-defense if someone is actively trying to injure or kill me. As for empathy, when I see others suffer, it definitely does affect me. I am autistic. I don't think the diagnostic revisions made things confusing. I was diagnosed in March of 2020. Back in the day, I would have been diagnosed with Asperger's. I think I present differently from autistics with greater disability. I am pretty low support needs, but have never been able to work more than part-time. I'm a massage therapist and pretty damn empathic.